This is a video of Rizbot. You can go check it out when you get home. It's funny, humorous, robot, droid, but you will all work and interact with and hire and fire robots and droids with artificial general intelligence and who knows what other capacities. So today we're going to learn, try to begin to answer the question, will there ever be persons, these robots and droids that you all will work with? Like, I don't mean in the full-blown biological sense of the word, but legally, morally, philosophically, right, conceptually, the question is, which properties or qualities do we have as selves and as persons that they lack now, but may gain and hence qualify to meet the necessary and sufficient conditions to become a person? When will we start calling them persons? And the way I want to explore this, next slide, is to go back to when we first thought of ourselves as persons. Wait, what? Seriously, most people who've ever lived didn't think of themselves as persons, as free and conscious, autonomous, self-governing beings. So we're going to go back to a time after Socrates, and Plato, Aristotle, the early Christian thinkers, because our notion of person is bound up with religious notions of a soul and a self. So this is pre-Christian, but the Christians got all their ideas from Plato and Aristotle, as you'll see. Next slide. Thank you, go ahead, John. So let me introduce you to Homeric automatons. These are the main characters in Homer's works. Now, Homer, we don't even know if he was real. These were for 1,000 BC, 1,000 years BC, people were telling these stories. The Greeks were telling these stories to each other, right? And making a narrative of their own history. And Homer wrote these down around 700. This is the Iliad. And the words he uses here are the origins of some of our psychological terms. But again, this is there's no selves in sight here. But you know this word, psyche, or psyche, in the Old Greek. This meant life force, or literally blood. So when Hector is killed, his psyche bleeds out on the battlefield. So it's a very physical thing. But it later becomes our psychology and soul and all that. Nous later becomes mind, but literally the gods could keep their favorite humans in their nous, in their vision. And cardia, you know, the source of our cardiac and all that. Themos is literally the drive or energy that warriors needed to go into battle. But the same word could apply to the ocean. So the ocean could have themos, could be agitated, just like you could be. So these humans were trying to figure out these forces, these hormones, these physical chemical reactions that we all have. They're the same as us. They had the same brain chemistry, the same neurochemistry as we do, but they didn't have the same concepts we do. Until this guy. Go ahead, John. This is just a summary of what I just said. So, Iliadic man, the man in Homer's stories, didn't have a subjectivity as we do. He had no awareness of his awareness of the world, no internal mind space to calculate and rationalize and plan. The words in the Iliad that at a later age came to mean mental things have different meanings, all of them a lot more concrete and less abstract back then. Psyche, thumos, nous. Okay. Next slide. So, our main hero of the story is Socrates. And in his trial, he starts speaking. He was found guilty and executed by Athens at 399 BC. He started talking this in a strange way. Next slide. Go harm. This is a quote from his trial. And we know it's accurate, word for word, because two people were there as witnesses, writing down everything that Socrates said. This was like the trial of the century back then. And he was a famous war hero and troublemaker and got in trouble with the politicians. And so he says he spoke in such a strange way that people thought he was insane. People literally said that he was feeling his age. He was 70 at the time he said this. He says, you have often heard me speak of an oracle or sign which comes to me, and is a divinity which Epictetus, one of his accusers, ridicules in his indictment. The sign I have had ever since I was a child. The sign is a voice which comes to me and always forbids me to do something which I am going to do, but never commands me to do anything. And this is what stands in the way of me being a politician. Now, this word, this sign, hegemonikon in Greek, like hegemony, like ruler, he calls it his ruling principle and his divine sign. And this is what his later students, like Plato, and then Aristotle and the Stoics, and the Christians after the Stoics, come to mean by self, in a word. So Plato, Socrates' student, he's run the whole university trying to figure out this psychology, right? Because whatever Socrates said just baffled everybody so much and was so foreign to the Greeks, who again thought of themselves as automatons and pushed and pulled around by the gods. But no, Plato's trying to give us responsibility, trying to give us rationality. So here's a quote. The opinion generally held of knowledge is something of this sort, that it is no strong or governing or leading thing, no hegemonikon. It is not regarded as anything of that kind, but people think that while a man often has knowledge in him, he is not led by it, but by something else. Now by passion, now by pleasure, now by pain, at times by love, and often by fear. Their feeling about knowledge is just that what they have about a slave, that it may be dragged about by any other source, by any other force, right? So we've got knowledge, we've got rationality, but we're often led, by. He gives a story. Next quote, go ahead, John. He says, I once heard a story which I believe that Leontius, the son of Aglion, on his way up from the Piraeus, next to Athens, under the outer side of the northern wall, became aware of dead bodies that lay at a place of public execution. And he knew a desire to see them, and at the same time was disgusted and turned away. For a time he struggled and veiled his head, but finally, overpowered by his desire, he pushed his eyes wide open, rushed up to the corpses and cried, there, you wretches, take your fill of the fine spectacle, right? He says, this anecdote signifies that anger sometimes fights against desires as one thing against another. So now we've got a kind of dynamic mind, right, where we know we shouldn't eat that second donut, but we want to, right? Or have that third beer, but we give in to temptation. Next slide, go ahead. Aristotle, Plato's most famous student, fills in this picture even more. And he gives us this profound, these are two words that he invents. These are neologisms in English. Wish, bolisis, which becomes voluntas and voluntary, is found in the part of the soul with reason, and appetite and spirit is in the part without reason. Choice is not a wish, but we wish for ends, but choose the means to our end. We wish to be healthy, for example, but choose things to make us healthy. Choice is deliberate desire. It is intellect qualified by desire, or desire qualified by thought. And what originates in this way is human. Proheresis, the word literally means, it's the origin of our word comprehend and prehensile. Like he literally thought, his mind gave us the ability to reach out and grasp things. Almost like your prehensile organ, our opposable thumb allows us to do. So again, it's a very crude picture of the mind, but it's much more sophisticated than what came before. Okay, and finally the Stoics, who Epictetus, of course, met with some Christians, and the interplay between the Christianity And the Stoics we're just now beginning to understand it. But here's a famous quote of his. Next slide. I think I might be running out of time. Here's a classic quote, Epictetus. Consider, you who are going into court, what you wish to maintain and what you wish to succeed in. For if you wish to maintain a will conformable to nature, you have every security, every facility, you have no troubles. For if you wish to maintain what is in your own power and is naturally free, and if you are content with these, what else do you care for? For who is the master of such things? Who can take them away? If you choose to be modest and faithful, who shall not allow you to be so? If you choose not to be restrained or compelled, who shall compel you to desire what you think that you ought not to desire? When then the pursuit of objects and the avoiding of them are in your power, what else do you care for? Let this be your preface, your narrative, your confirmation, this your victory, this your peroration, this your applause. So finally you've got full-fledged autonomy and free choice to take or leave, things that tempt you or things you desire. Okay, I think last quote, last page. So, if we have time to chat about these, we will. But for robots and persons, they must at least have a free will. They must deliberate on their desires, right, and choose or reject them, according to the Stoics, and act only on those desires, according to Socrates, that are rational and good, at least good for me, right? That's what rationality means for these guys. This means probably that they must have second-order desires or desires, bad desires, right? I wish I didn't. I wish I had stronger willpower, right? I wish I wasn't such an addict, such a workaholic, such an alcoholic, whatever. And now for the Greeks, they thought if you had all these things, that meant you were conscious, right? Modern philosophers might disagree with this. We've got more sophisticated notions of subjective consciousness, so-called phenomenal consciousness. There's something it's like for me to be me and for you to be you. There's nothing it's like to be a robot or a droid, even Rizbot. So for now, we're not programming robots to have feelings and emotions and urges and desires, but we might, or they might design themselves to have these capacities. And then we're going to have some interesting philosophical questions and discussions with these robots. Thank you.